All right, we're going to continue up the level of organization. We talked about atoms and molecules, and then we talked about the cell, and we looked at the parts of the cell, the organelles, and now we're moving up a group of cells with a common function we call a tissue. So tissues are made up of cells. Group of cells with a common or related function. The study of cells is called histology. So if you worked in a hospital and your job was to look at tissues that were either cancerous or benign, meaning no cancer, you would be a histologist. So they look at tissues. There's 4 categories of tissues that you'll talk about in lab: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Those are the 4 main classifications of tissues. Within each classification, we have more detailed specific tissue types that you have to know. There's a lot of different tissues. We don't have you know all of them in general A&P, but we picked the most important ones affecting the different body systems. So the first group of tissues are epithelial tissues. These cover and line our body surfaces, organs, cavities. So I shouldn't say surfaces, internal surfaces, the hollow surfaces, like your esophagus, most of your digestive tract. Those are epithelial tissues. They form glands and ducts. They serve as a boundary between different environments. So either external or internal, you're going to come in contact with an epithelial tissue. Characteristics of the epithelial tissues is that they're closely packed together. There's not space between the cells. I can see these cells here. These are squamous cells, and they are tightly packed together with no fluid between them if I look at the surface of that tissue. They are avascular, which means they do not have blood vessels. So they do not have blood vessels, but they do have nerves. So avascular, no blood vessels. And they have a high regeneration, which means they're able to replace themselves if sloughed off. For example, the skin is made up of stratified squamous epithelium, many layers of flattened cells, and they can replace themselves about every 30 days. But they do not have a blood supply at the surface. If you look at your skin, it's lighter than your lips, right? Your lips have less layers, and you can see the vascular layer underneath the top layer of skin that does have blood vessels in it. That's why our lips are darker in color than our regular skin is. So functions of epithelial, lots of different functions, lots of variety throughout the body. We're not going to go through each individual function, but just know they have a variety of functions in the body. And we can classify or name them using this 2-name system. The first name tells us how many layers of cells are present. Simple means 1 layer of cells. 1 layer of cells. Stratified means many layers of cells. So the first name is always going to be like simple or stratified. And then the second name tells us the shape. If it's flattened squash cells, we call them squamous cells. Cuboidal means they're square cells. Columnar means they're tall. So you can see the different shapes of the cells here on the right-hand side. So there's a 2-name system. First with the number of layers, second the shape of those cells. So here's the different epithelial cells. You can see stratified or squamous, and this one is pseudo-stratified, means it kind of looks stratified, but it's actually simple. This one tells us that it kind of switches back and forth, looking like a variety of different cells. So we just give it its own little name called transitional epithelium. But the majority, we can see 5 out of the 7 here, have the 2-name system, simple or stratified. So simple squamous epithelium is good for rapid absorption, 1 layer of flattened cells. These line our capillaries, airways of the lungs. We're going to talk more about this in lab. Stratified, many layers of flattened cells, so they're keratinized, which means they have a waterproof, waxy substance among them that keeps them as a waterproofing layer. As we get deeper, we see less keratin, less waterproofing. So the waxy outer surface of our skin has the keratin layer. Connective tissue is the next major classification of tissues. Big word that you need to know when you think of connective tissue is matrix. So you're going to see cells suspended in some type of fluid or semi-solid or solid material we call matrix. So we can see the cells, the dark nuclei here. Everything between them is matrix. It's like a soup. Okay, so it's the fluid of the soup. So every connective tissue has some matrix between it. It's the most abundant tissue type, found everywhere in the body. When in doubt, if you see a tissue, it's connective. So it has a variety of functions depending on the connective tissue. So I'm not going to go through each one of these, but we're just going to look at the different connective tissues. So they all have protein fibers and some other type of substance, some other type of fluid, or maybe it's a compound like calcium phosphate. And this matrix, like I said, is some type of fluid. We'll go through each one. A realer tissue is the body's packing peanuts. It has this lacy, kind of hair-like arrangement in the background. It can absorb and release fluid during periods of dehydration or overhydration. Dense connective tissue makes up our ligaments and tendons. It has collagen fibers, these pink fibers all running in one direction. Does not have a good blood supply, so when ligaments or tendons get torn, they don't heal very quickly. Sometimes it requires surgery, right? You've heard of people that have damaged their ACL or, different ligaments and tendons, and as a result, they need surgery to repair those, or they need to use a cadaver tendon or ligament. Ligaments are are more commonly torn and needing surgical repair. So we will continue with the tissue review next time.